to go about finding the best way to find out how to get the statement under your belt and really understand them is make sure you have your own. So if you haven't signed up for your own account on socialsecurity.gov, SSA.gov, please make sure to do that. That's a takeaway for you. Make sure you get your own Social Security account and your statement. Download your full earnings history. Social Security now only provides not a complete list on the statement. You have to separately click on the button to get your full earnings history. And you want your clients to do the same and encourage them to have their kids' SSNs set up in the online system to attach their names with their Social Security numbers. It does help prevent some of the cyber crime that we are in the midst of. All right, with claiming categories and the calculation itself, there are only 4 claiming categories that we will be in as a retired individual. The individual worker, so anyone who's worked and has an earnings history. You'll be a spouse, an ex-spouse, or a surviving spouse or ex-spouse. And that's it. This is how Social Security looks at all of us. It doesn't matter if you are, if I'm married to Dan Mantell, if you recognize that last name. I know a lot of you know Dan. I think he's on today. Hi, Dan. Dan and Marcia, you can be, a husband and wife couple. You can be a same-sex married couple. Partners, different story. A spouse is legally married in the state and under the federal government that you are a spouse and you get the same rules, spouses, regardless of who your spouse is. But you don't get multiple benefits when you fall into multiple categories. And that's an area a lot of consumers are really unhappy about. It's like, wait, my ex died and I'm married now to Charlie. Don't I get both? No, you don't get both. You only get one. It will be the highest benefit for which you're eligible at the time you're claiming, but you don't get 2. On our terminology, back to vocabulary, here's our FRA, full retirement age. Full retirement age is the anchor for the calculated benefit. Each of your clients will have their own FRA, and this is the exact month and year that Social Security has deemed you to be retired. You can still be working. It doesn't mean that you're not working. It just means for the purposes of the calculation and whether you'll be penalized or rewarded, FRA is a very specific month and year. So clients born in 1958, their full retirement age is 66 and 8 months. So they would not, if someone's born in October of 1958, they will have an FRA in 1959, 6 months into 1959 to get to 66 and 8. For me, my birthday is July 20th, 1961. So my FRA is July of 2028. And the only caution here for clients, anyone who has a January 1st birthday, their FRA is actually the year before. So a client born on January 1st, 1958, their FRA is actually 1957. So make sure you tweak that, and it gets more important with Medicare, but just know that January 1st is a pivotal piece of information to know about your clients. Then there's calculating your AMI. So everyone has an FRA, full retirement age. That's the anchor calculation. When calculating the AMI, the average indexed monthly earnings, there are 4 parts to this. The first is to make sure that your client actually qualifies. Now that will be written right clearly on the statement, but they need to have earned 40 credits, and you earn credits by paying FICA taxes. So typically, if you've worked for 10 years, they don't have to be consecutive years. Most clients are going to have reached their 40 credits, probably by the time they're in their late 30s. Some earlier, some later, but give or take. So they earn their 40 credits. And then each year of earnings history is recorded on your Social Security statement up to the taxable wage base. And the client needs at least 35 years of earnings, or at least to know that, so that he or she knows whether there'll be any zeros included in their calculation. So the SSA uses your highest 35 years of earnings, and they get the highest 35, not by the actual earnings that you had back in 1983, but they do index that for wage inflation. So that will happen up through age 59. And then any earnings that come in from 60, 61 until you work at 90, those just come in as regular dollars. Whatever you earn that year, $75,000, that stays in the calculation if it is among your highest 35 years of earnings. So the AMI is actually just exactly what it says: average indexed, those are wage indexed monthly earnings over your lifetime, over your career. So you have 35 years out of 50, let's say, that people have worked. The highest 35 are applied in the formula, and they get to a monthly number by summing up all of your annual wages, divide by 35, divide by 12. You don't have to do this, right? This is not a calculation you're going to have to do, but it's to know what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of times what ends up happening is women in particular who were in and out of the workforce a lot might have 10 zeros going into their earnings record, and they could use some advice. Should I keep working? Well, maybe, but maybe not. If you're married, you get a bigger benefit on a spouse. So there's a lot of ways these will tie together. And when you know these fundamentals, you can make the leap and help individual clients make good decisions. Now, the calculation is not done just because you now know an FRA and there's an AMI. The PIA, which is your primary insurance amount, the amount that will land in your checkbook if you claim at your full retirement age, that calculation is a set of tiers. And these are what you see here. Everyone's AMI will be split into 3 bands, and they will get 90% of the first roughly $1,000, 32% if you're between 1,024 and 6,172. The bend points are for this year, 2022. And for higher income people, they would have an AMI more than 6,172. So they'll get 15% of anything over that amount. Add up the 3, and that's the PIA. This is your client's anchor amount. They're deemed retired. This is how much their benefit would be if they claim at that point. There'll be no reductions and no increases. It's just a starting point, but it's super important to know that starting point. And here's an example, someone who has an income of around $60,000 and their AMI is 3,500. You do the first band, yields 912. Second band is between 1,024 and 6,172. And they don't have an AMI that's over 6,100. So the calculation stops here. Add them up and you get a number. It's helpful for you to keep in mind the averages. I mentioned earlier that regular folks are really pretty disappointed to find out they're not going to get a whole lot of money from Social Security. Again, it's for retirement, social safety net. They were never going to get a lot of money from it. On average, if you have an average wage earner who's a male, he'll get about $1,700 a month if he's at FRA this year. Women, $1,400, and your highest earning clients, $3,300. So when you're looking at statements, or even if clients don't have statements, if someone's doing a retirement income plan and says, yeah, I'm figuring I'm probably going to get about $7,000 a month in Social Security. Yeah, no, they're not. Maybe 2 people in a married couple, but not 1 person. The highest they're going to get is about $3,300 unless they're waiting until after full retirement age. Different story. But this gives you a little bit of an anchor so you know how to set some expectations. And even though people are disappointed that they're not getting what they think they deserve, the vast majority of people, well over 50%, are still claiming early before their full retirement age. So there's a reduction for that. You haven't met Social Security's definition of you being retired, and therefore the payments have to stretch out over longer periods of time. Therefore, there's going to be a reduction in the monthly income. And the formula is 0.5% for the first 36 months, plus if someone is, say, 67, 0.5% for the next 24 months. And the way I look at it is this. Remember 1935, you could only retire at 65 or earlier. There's mandatory retirement pretty much everywhere. So in order to stretch out the benefit, it was a 20% maximum reduction, divvied up by month. But then enter the 1983 amendments, and now we stretch out full retirement age even further, but we didn't change the earliest age you could claim. It stayed at 62. So we just have two parts of a calculation that is for originally those who retired at 65, and now those of us who have a much older FRA. So that's the background to the worker reduction. Overall, keep in mind, if you've got a client who's be 67 for his FRA or her FRA, it's a 30% reduction if they want to claim at 62. These are permanent reductions. DRCs, delayed retirement credits, of course, are the bonus money. For clients waiting till after FRA to claim, they get 8% per year. Up until age 70, and it's divvied up by month. You don't have to wait until from 67 to 68 or all the way till 70. You could retire at, if your FRA is 67, retire at 67 in 9 months, and you get 9 months worth of DRCs. So, okay, those are the formulas. Those are the basics of the formulas. And we want to now pull out your formula sheet. So I put the formulas on that you'll need and a grid that you can work with or framework to do a client case for an individual worker. Okay, you remember this example, we did the bend points and calculated a PIA based on an AMI of $3,500. Well, now you're going to do a calculation for a more likely client for many of you, the higher income wage earners, and they're going to have an average index monthly earnings over their lifetime of $11,300. So what we'd like you to do, we'll call this worker is going to be Charlie. Here's the data on Charlie. He was born September of 1960, so he'll turn 62 this year. His FRA is 67. Yes, he's got his 40 credits. We know his AMI, but he really wants to retire soon. And the sooner the better. He's thinking he can make it till the end of 2024, but really he doesn't want to. So what we want to solve for, and look at his situation, when this person comes in to see you and have a chat about his plans for retiring, he really does want to retire early, and it would be helpful to bring in some income from Social Security so he can preserve his own assets. Not a bad idea. But he also likes the idea of getting more Social Security in his 80s and 90s, assuming he's going to live that long. And for planning purposes, they're going to live a really long time, these clients. So when should he really consider claiming? So what we're going to do together is solve for Charlie's PIA, look at what happens if he retires on 8/31/2023, so just in a year at age 63, and then look at what happens with his benefits increasing at 68, 69, and 70. And then one piece that I always take a look at with clients and with individuals who call is I always look at 65. For the person who really would like to retire early, but isn't sure, the hit to anyone's monthly income of 25 or 30% is huge, and especially huge as you move out into your 80s and 90s. Sometimes a compromise is more at age 65. So we'll run that number as well. And then talk about what should you talk to him about. So in your packet that Andrew sent out for you, you have a page that looks like this. So we're going to spend 5 minutes. I will set my timer here. Calculate PIA, and then calculate what's happening if he claims on 9/1/2023 using the formulas provided. And I'll put his situation back up, and I'll set my handy dandy timer. So spend a few minutes. I'll come back in like at 2 minutes and see how you're doing, and put any questions you have in the chat. But really try this. Try calculating that PIA. Make sure you've got the mechanics right. And yes, I know there are tools for this, but it's a workshop, hands-on. Too bad we're not in a classroom. So give it a whirl, and then I'll show you how I approach this. And I find it just quicker to do by hand most of the time than digging up a tool. So go right ahead. Andrew, that's you too. I hope you have your worksheets printed out.
I do, but I'm answering emails and chat. So I
we'll have a private session.
My hands are a little bit full right now, but but I do have my calculator and pencil handy, just not in use right now.
You're the best. By the way, Dan Mantell wanted to know if I'd show him the answer first today. I said no. All right, is anyone brave enough to put an answer in the chat to see if they got the right answer for his PIA? You don't have to. Dan Mantell also wanted to know if this was going to be a graded exercise. No, it is not. 33,
We do have some.
88.
Are you going through the?
Outstanding. Thank you,
chat?
you brave people. You are correct. The answer is 33, 37, or 33, 38, depends how, if you use pennies or not. Social Security will always round down, and they're going to give your clients the final answer anyway. But yes, if you did these 3 steps, that is awesome. So you've got his PIA now is 33, 37. You always have to start the math there. So then go back and take a look at what would happen if he retires on 8/31. He's going to retire right as he's turning 63. He'll claim on 9/1 is his plan, or it's a position you're going to show him. And what does the reduction look like for Charlie? So that's your middle box. He claims early on 9/1. So we'll do a few minutes here. And if you get the early estimates, the claiming early, feel free to move right on to the claiming at 68, 69, and 70. I think most of you will find that infinitely easy, even if you're not a math person. Okay, I see some of you are putting in, you're so brave. Thank you. We promise we won't hold anything against you if you have the wrong answer. So yes, those of you who have put in the chat, you are correct. All right, so let's walk through. You saw the PIA. Again, that's the anchor. So this person, 33, 37, he's one of the highest wage earners. So that's why he's going to have a high AMI, even though you will never see that number. You can actually build these out from Social Security's website, but no need. It's just to give you the background and know, your high income clients are going to have a PIA of around, $3,300, assuming they retire today. Now, when I did this workshop with some different examples in the summer, I had written out all of my answers by hand in pencil. And some of you had asked me for those. And I was so taken aback that anyone would want to see my, chicken scratch. But I said, buck up, Marcia, show people how you do it today. So the next page, it's typed out. But to show you the PIA that you all got, Charlie's claiming at FRA, or that's our anchor. I always just make sure I've got my dates right. It's such a silly thing. And again, the statements now have all this information. They just came out the middle of last year, but he's only going to be 62 this year. And if he wants to retire early, he's at the maximum decrease and reduction if he's going to claim early. So just doing out the math, we saw 33, 37. For the early claim, this is always done in months. Now, I had a harder example initially, and then I thought this is just supposed to be for education, not getting down into the weeds. So yeah, someone who retires early, but his FRA is September of 2027. He's 48 months early. So you're going to have to do both parts of the workers' reduction formula. So it's 5/9 times the 36 months early. He fits the whole first 36 months. So that's a 20% reduction. And then 5/12 times 12, 5%. So he's going to get a 25% permanent reduction by claiming 48 months early. So he's going to lose $834 a month. And once you talk to a client about that, so already, right, he's a high income worker. It's like, what? I'm only getting $3,300 if I work until 67. And then he's going to lose 25% of it. Like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. So his base payment becomes $2,500. So it's way less than $3,300 that he was already disappointed about. So that's why I counter with, well, let's look at what happens after FRA, right? So if you were to wait, you'd get $3,600 if you wait until age 68 to claim. And 69, you get $3,871. And if you wait all the way till 70 to claim, it's $4,138. So I know most of you got these answers in the chat I saw as well. It's just simply multiplying 1.08, 1.16, 1.24 times the PIA, because again, that's your anchor. So PIA starts everything. It gets reduced for claiming early. It gets bumped up for waiting to claim. And again, that age 65, I just think it's important to take a look at 65. Medicare starts at 65. So when you have clients who are retiring at early, generally they have to jump into Medicare right away. And I'm just looking for where I wrote all this out because I now can't see it on my screen. All right, let me just move this. So at 65, he is still 24 months early. So you'd have 5/9 times the 24 months yields a 13% reduction. So he's still going to lose $444 a month. And his PIA is dropping to $2,893. All right, so it's not great. Claiming early is a real problem for most people because they've got to make up for that later through their portfolio. And sometimes people have to claim early though. So it's not a lot of advisors I've talked to, like, can't I just say everyone should claim at 70? No, you can't. It would be nice if it were that simple. And of course, mathematically, it works out that 70 is your best number. But you have to weigh in all the factors for the individual person or couple to figure out help them figure out what's the best time to claim. These are the answers just in a nicer format. So you could see them rather than me just writing. And then it's, what do you talk about? Some of you, work with a lot of older clients, and so you have these conversations frequently. But what I very often find is for a lot of advisors, you only work with somebody at the cusp of having to make these decisions 4 or 5 times a year. So you never build up like all this momentum. I do this every day, so I can find these connections for things or things people don't think about. You're doing other work for these clients and you're making sure their investments are holding and so forth. You've got other things to do. So thinking about, what do you talk to this guy about? Well, there are a lot of things. First of all, and I think the most important thing, there are people who want to retire early, and that's all well and good. Heck, if you can do it, by golly, go for it. But it's completely different for when you're going to claim Social Security. The two don't go hand in hand. And we've gone away from understanding that as a community, not the professional side, the consumer side. They just think I got to retire. I'm going to retire at the end of the month and Social Security starts the first day of the next month. Well, no, it doesn't. Charlie can retire tomorrow. Can he bridge his income till 67 or till 70? What's he going to be willing to do? Where are the trade-offs? And what I really focus on with individuals is when to claim has to address their current income needs. I mean, look, if he's retiring at 62 or 63 and is waiting to claim till 67, how's he going to eat? Right? That's the big question. So that's why this bridge strategy concept is so important. You do need to address current income, but also the future reality for his 80s and 90s, right? How much income are you willing to not have in your 80s and 90s? So there's always a trade-off. Also consider, is there a critical health need, a job loss, needing to care for a family? Is there a reason he wants to retire early? Or is he like me and just kind of fed up and ready to go? How much more is the client willing to draw down his portfolio? You know how hard these people work to save adequate amounts for retirement. And the goal had always been to start at 65 or 67 or whatnot. If he starts early and takes this big draw on the portfolio, is it sustainable? So this is scenario building that you all are going to be doing on your retirement income planning, whether you're using software or yellow pad of paper, having that conversation. Is Charlie going to make big lifestyle changes? Is he selling the big house in Hingham and moving to a much smaller place out in the Berkshires? That could be a completely different scenario, and you need to know that. Also, is there another job that Charlie might get, whether it's a phased retirement option or working part-time? Is there a way he can, instead of drawing Social Security early, is there a way for him to bring in more income and then only have to take a smaller draw off the portfolio? And the other big piece is what clients need to know and realize, and this is where you can help them, is the numbers that they see on their statement or this PIA 3337, that's not how much money he's going to get. That is not what it will be deposited into his checking account. As soon as Social Security and Medicare are turned on, his Part B monthly premiums come straight out of his Social Security check before he ever gets the check. So this year, Medicare Part B premium is $170.10, but then there's IRMA on top of that for your high wage earners. So people can be having anywhere from $250 to $500 per person per month pulled straight out of their Social Security check. So that is super important to make sure people understand, clients understand that they're not going to get what they think they're going to get. So keep that in mind as well. All right, now I want to be crystal clear here. As you can see, when a client claims is on them. You can't make them wait. You can't make them do something. You can present data. You can have discussions, but they're going to decide what they're going to decide. All right. Now, one of the things that is always fascinating is that everyone seems to come upon this idea, this brilliant idea that, hey, I can quit my job, do something part-time, and claim Social Security. And because I'm going to have a reduced income, I'll get Social Security anyway, etc. So I have another example in here for you to do. We won't have time to do it today in the session, but pick through this a bit and then email me your answers. Charlie thinks he's going to make up the shortfall. He's going to claim at 63, and he really wants to claim because, you know, it's going bankrupt and all. So isn't that a good compromise to work and claim? And the answer is no. It's the reason Charlie's a high income worker. We already know that. And even if he goes to part-time, Charlie will have his benefits withheld if he earns over $15,560 this year, because he is way younger than FRA. So the earnings test will really hit him hard. And I did one example here, and you will get, I think we're doing the slides. If not, I'll send you this scenario. He will get nothing from claiming early in Social Security if he's earning $100,000, which will be a good half of what he's earning today. And then I gave you a scenario to work on $50,000. So this, you know, do in your copious spare time. And here's how the benefits are paid. If you are under the earnings limit and under FRA, you get your reduced benefit paid out every month. However, when you're over the earnings limit, there are entire months where the client gets zero, and the payments do not start until the withholding required amount is trued up. So in other words, there's no pro rata payments with Social Security. Payments are made for a full month only. And this is always a surprise to clients. So again, what's Social Security for? Retirement. It is for retirement. It's not for working and claiming, because then you're working. Anything before a client's FRA carries some sort of penalty. Be the earnings test. It could be the reduction factors and so forth. So let me wrap up here and go with how to claim individual workers, not necessarily spouses or widows or divorced people, but individual workers claim online, right on the homepage of ssa.gov. And right below that is the My Social Security button, where you'll get your statement and your clients will set up their statements. Payments are made monthly in the entire amount they're meant to be paid. So again, nothing pro rata. Payments are made on Wednesdays, and for the most part, direct deposited now right into your client's bank accounts. They're on Wednesdays based on the date they were born, the day of the month they were born. So if you're born the 1st through the 10th, your check comes the second Wednesday of the following month. And benefits are always reduced for these items. Medicare Part B again, IRMA for B and D, if they're doing voluntary tax withholdings, early claims exceeding the earnings limits, or the WEP reduction for those workers who have uncovered pension income, like the state teachers. So with that, Andrew and Kathleen, we are done for today with this workshop, and we're going to have our next session on February 3rd, where we pick up on this formula, this basic formula, and now look at married couples and what happens there. So with that, I will say thank you all for attending, and Andrew, we're back to you.
Marcia, that was just delightful. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your enthusiasm, answering all the questions, and I'm not surprised at all. I'm just so excited for this to kick off in this way. I know that we'll debrief, make a couple adjustments here and there, but please, everybody, provide your feedback in SurveyMonkey, because we've got 3 weeks to make those adjustments, and we want to make sure that we're providing the education that is necessary for you in your practice and within our community. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in 3 weeks. Take care.